On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
It's not enough to just say, okay, well, women can do what they want without taking accountability for how we're pushing this narrative in society and influencing women to do things differently versus saying, okay, do what you want. Because what I'm seeing is that women in a lot of ways are saying it's not enough to just be a housewife anymore. It's not enough to take care of the kids. There's a narrative that's being pushed that you are now a beta woman if you submit yourself to your husband and align yourself with what it is that he's doing in order to build up this family unit.
We're still on the same topic, as you can see. And then the question that I posed was, should a woman know where she is going as well? And then that transitioned into, what if the woman knows where she is going? Does that dictate what man should be in her life? And so when I asked these questions, Courtney had a different stance versus Kay. Kay's stance was that it's 2021 and, women can do like whatever it is they want. Courtney's response was that a woman's role should be always to follow the lead of the man. And so we was just kind of chiming in on that. And I want to kind of get your thoughts about it.
Well, one thing that I heard Rilla say, the context of that is that when he was saying that even dope boys, a lot of these guys are doing it because they're incentivized to do it. So they got to protect their turf, because if they don't, then it affects their earnings, right? They give out the turkeys because it paints their image in a way that makes them more acceptable or aligned and champion in their environment. So it's all based off of selfish reasons. It doesn't necessarily align with the fact that they, grinding or on a purpose or anything like that. When it comes to women and when it comes to this environment that we live in which it's 2021, women can do what they want. Yeah, anybody can do what they want. Like, women could have did what they wanted back in the day. It was more dire consequences because they didn't have as much opportunity, but it didn't mean that the purpose wasn't the same. Just because we have more technology, just because things have evolved in a way in which we've been able to adapt and have more opportunities and choice and everything like that, does not mean that the purpose is not the same, that the goals don't stay the same, that the results don't yield the same thing when you don't do what you're supposed to do or you don't align with where you're supposed to go. So yeah, women can do what they want, and you seeing the results of it, as though, like, for example, you see a lot more women dying alone. You see a lot more women being single. You see a lot more women desiring the companionship that it comes with men, but they trying to do it on their own terms. They trying to fit it into a puzzle that don't fit, and then they complaining about the results that come along with it. So yeah, of course, you got more choice. You can do what you want, but at the same time, you're gonna have to suffer the dire results that come along with that choice. It's almost like children, right? Children often at times are prevented from doing the wrong thing from the people that lord over them, from their parents or whatever like that. They protect them. They remove the choice to a larger extent from the child to do what they want to do, because if you leave a child up to his own devices, they kill themselves. They'll do something stupid. They'll drive off. If you give a child a keys to a missile, a flying missile, which is a car, they'll kill themselves. So just because we petition and we asking for more, or we have more freedom, does not necessarily mean that we're aligned and doing the things that we're supposed to do. The question then becomes, what is your purpose? Because just because you can do what you want to do, and just because you feel like this is what you want to do, does not necessarily mean that that's you. Everybody want to be a millionaire, but they can't. Everybody want to be a leader, but they can't. Everybody want to be the CEO, but we need some people to move the chairs too. And because nobody wants to align with what their purpose is, nobody want to figure out and ask that question. Nobody want to get no coaching. Nobody want to figure out exactly what things are supposed to be in their life. What happens is you see a lot of things out of place, and then we want to have these group discussions and say, okay, so what's the thing, and why ain't men coming to the table, and why is it a community response? You're going to keep getting the same thing and the same bad results as long as you continue to operate out of place. And that's just the truth. You can't make things fit where they don't fit and then say, well, what's going wrong and what's wrong with everybody else? It always comes back to, you have to look in that mirror, figure out if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. If you supposed to move them chairs, the best you move them chairs. And you never know. That could be a stepping stone into moving into a different direction. But you first have to prove yourself and show that you can be faithful in little before you rule over much. And people are out of place. People are completely out of place. Men want to be women. Women want to be men. And nobody is on their purpose. And then they trying to figure out exactly why they out of place. Just because you can do something don't mean you're supposed to.
So JR said that I said women should do whatever they want. I just wanted to clarify that I never said that, like, do whatever you want. What? I said each person has individual purpose and they get to choose. If a woman says, I don't want to have kids, she can choose that. If a woman says, I want to be a wife and a mother, she can choose that. That's what I'm saying. I definitely think that as Black people, we need to work together, build strong families, get married, have kids, raise them, instill values, all of these things for sure. The part where I disagree is the whole, like, women shouldn't focus on their education. And the reason that I don't agree with that is because the wealth gap is huge between Black people and white people, or Black people and Asian people, and all, you know. So in order for us to be able to compete and do the things that we need to do to raise our families, usually that requires a 2-parent household where both people are working. So
who said
women
shouldn't focus on education? Who said that women shouldn't focus on education? Who said?
The focus, Courtney said the focus should be being a wife and a mother, but she was raised to be a man, focusing on education and all that other stuff. So from that,
let me clarify. I never said you shouldn't be out here dumb. What I said is that you should be focused on being a wife and a mother. What makes an amazing wife is being smart as well. There's not a man out here. Well, no one said you can't get your education. As a matter of fact, when you go to college, that's where you should find your husband. So while you're getting your education, you should be focused on finding a husband as well. So I never said be out here with a GED. Never said that you should be out here, you know, with a 5th grade education. I did not say that at all. I said to understand, you know, who you are, who you're supposed to be is a wife. An educated wife makes a man very more focused on his purpose because he knows that you can handle stuff and take care of home and maybe help him out when he needs you. So education is very important, but you focus on that and that being a priority besides being a wife, then that's where that's the shift. Your number one priority shouldn't be you just PhD and I'm getting this, It should be, I want a husband. And what I know, if I'm educated, my husband's going to appreciate me a whole lot more and I can bring a lot more to the table being smart.
So how do you do well in college in a 4-year university if you're not focused on doing well in the 4-year university?
Let me tell you why. Because majority of women that's going to a 4-year college is going to humanities. And I'm sorry to bust your bubble because I was in humanities too. I got my master's degree. I got my bachelor's in mass communication, emphasis in journalism. Do you really think that it really took long hours on end for me to get my degree in journalism? No. But the men that I knew were going to school getting doctorates in med, are engineers, are STEM field. So that's why you can focus on getting a husband and a degree. Majority of women getting degrees, the degrees ain't that really hard. Majority of women that are graduating and working as assistants.
I mean, if you want to look at somebody as an example, you can look at somebody like Michelle Obama, like educated.
Right. She was very focused on her education.
Yeah, until she met that guy and he was like, yo, but here's the key though. It's funny because I'm coaching a young lady, right? And I had a first session with her last week and she was very, very disappointed in how her mother was influenced by society to push her into being highly educated when she always realized and knew, and she's just as an adult realizing today that that's not her purpose. She got a lot of debt. She went into a field, medical field, whatever. So she's doing really well, whatever. But she knows that her purpose is more or less to align with a man that's moving in a direction in his purpose, and for her to really hold down that role. And she knows that the success of her family unit would create a more dynamic impact when it comes to their role in society and life and all of that, versus something that was pushed onto her by society, right, through her mother, that conditioned them to believe that women should be independent of men. So it's not enough to just say, okay, well, women can do what they want, without taking accountability for how we're pushing this narrative in society and influencing women to do things differently, versus saying, okay, do what you want. Because what I'm seeing is that women in a lot of ways are saying it's not enough to just be a housewife anymore. It's not enough to take care of the kids. There's a narrative that's being pushed that you are now a beta woman if you submit yourself to your husband and align yourself with what it is that he's doing in order to build up this family unit. So for us to not include that in a part of the conversation and just say that women can do what they want is short-sighted, and it's irresponsible, because society at large is pushing a narrative to say that women should not just be subjected to a man, or you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but this is the way to truly be a woman, and if you don't, we gonna shame you.
I don't think there's anything wrong with following your man. I don't think there's anything wrong with letting him lead the relationship. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's actually funny. Like, my mom is she's the one who kind of talks to me about the traditional roles of women and these types of things, which I'm totally in line with that. I just don't think it's either or. Like, I think you can have a very traditional relationship with your man, and you can also be educated, have a career, do these things. And I would never invalidate the desires of women who don't wish to be mothers, or can't be mothers, or don't want to be wives, or whatever.
But you just spoke about success when it comes to competing, right? You talked about competing with other groups, but other groups and at large are generally more successful because they understand the impact and the dynamic of having a traditional family unit.
I mean, but women in other groups are also educated and everything. That's why I'm saying that's not the factor that takes away from this. The whole education and career is not the factor that takes away, because within other groups, their women have careers and their women are educated as well. So, like, that's not the variable that causes the problem. That's
how is that not a variable? Everything is a variable.
But the problem
I didn't say it's not a variable. I said it's not the variable that causes the problem.
Let me tell you what causes the problem, Kay, is because as far as with us in the Black community, the women oversee and want to put education and career over their man. That's our problem. We're not saying you can't have a job, a career, education, just as long as it aligns with your husband's purpose. That's it. Do what you want to do, but make sure it aligns with your husband. The issue is that we will put number one, job and education, over getting a man, taking care of our man, being submissive to our man. And we weaponize it where I'm smarter than you, I make more money than you, so I'm better than you with our men. That's the problem that we're finding in our community. That's it.
I definitely agree that weaponizing your education or your money and all of these things and saying, like, I don't need you and all of this, I don't think that yields any great results at all. I don't think it should happen. It's just that, like, let's say you're not married. What are you going to do in the meantime? Like, Courtney, so, like, what will you do in the meantime until you get married? And then if you find a man, are you just going to be like, well, got to quit my job so that I can align in purpose?
Depends on who I marry. So my job is I am not my job. My job is because I put myself in a situation where I need to make sure that my house is taken care of. Now, once I find a husband and he's like, hey, I need you to do this, da da da, and this is how I'm seeing moving, I trust him, then that's it. I'm not married to my job. I'm married to my husband.
Right,
So
of
therefore,
course.
I make that move.
Chances are that the person you marry is not going to be making 200,000, 300, 400,000. I mean, it could absolutely happen. But chances are it's not going to be that, just because most people don't make that much money. So let's say you're both needed to work. You know what I'm saying? In that situation, what would be your next move?
Then that's it. If he needs me to work, keep my job, then that's it. It's not, you know, I'm going to do this and you better get on my lead. I'm on his lead. So therefore, if we're together, he's like, yo, I'm making 50 grand. You making this, you won't need to work, baby girl. And I'm like, all right, baby boy, we got this. Mm-hmm. That's it. It ain't rocket science.
It's just dependent. I mean, because I think I don't know. For me, of course, if you're marrying some multimillionaire and he's like, stay home, you know, whatever, I'm not the type that's going to fight and be like, no, I'm going to work. Like, this is not what I would do. That's just not the typical situation, though, for most people. So I'm not speaking to that situation. I'm speaking about the fact that in many households, both people need to work. So I guess when it said, like, you know, women should focus solely on becoming wives and mothers, I feel like that's short-sighted, because you need all of that. You need to get your education, you need to get a job, and you need to become a wife and a mother.
Look at it as an absolute, Kay. Being a wife and becoming a wife doesn't mean that you're not working. It doesn't mean you're not educated.
Exactly.
No one is saying that. I think that's what gets lost in translation sometimes with you, because you're just so absolute. Me becoming a wife doesn't mean that I'm not educated. I'm very educated. I have a great career.
The part that
supersedes my husband.
The part where the disconnect is when you're saying, like, the primary purpose is being a wife and mother. Like, you have to do the other things too. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
that's all I'm saying. You should get your education.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't. You do what your husband needs you to do, and what he tell you to do, you do it.
And if you don't have a husband, you still need to have a purpose in life, is what I'm saying.
And then sometimes we put ourselves in a situation, because we don't have a husband, where we have to work and have everything that a man's supposed to have on his shoulders. We put it on ours.
Many people with husbands still have to work.
Well,
I think
most people with husbands still have to work.
Hey, really, go ahead and make your point, and then I'm
I think this is what's being missed, because it's whether you work or not, it still doesn't take away from your innate purpose and your innate function as a man. Even if whatever the vision that the man casts, that's the vision. So even if the vision is, you know, we get it in Western culture, you know, 1% earns, you know, 10% earns, 15% earns, whatever. You know, at the end of the day, most of what we experience in this Western culture is 2-income households. That's cool. Still doesn't take away from what the innate purpose and function of the woman is. She's still gonna be nurturing. She's still like that's what she does. I don't care if she works in the daycare or if she's the CEO of Ariel Mutual Funds. When she comes, she's still nurturer. And we see this in the workplace. Or she's protector, as in Mama Bear, you know, as one of our favorite YouTubers talks about, you know, protecting that front line of that dollar. You know what I'm saying? So it's still the same thing. Like, it's still the same thing. So that's all I wanted to say.